All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Within Tolerance. This is episode 20, and we are joined by the Dr. Phil Experience from Instagram. If you guys aren't following him, you definitely have to go check out his Instagram. He does a lot of cool 5-axis machining, a lot of really intricate, cool parts that are surfaced on all sorts of angles. Really cool stuff. I'm actually going to have Dylan introduce him. So, Dylan, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of covered it. He does some amazing work over at MJK and just really cool motorcycle performance parts that, even if you're not a motorcyclist or interested in that kind of stuff, just amazing work holding, fixturing, cool machines. Phil, if you could just take it away and kind of let us know what you do and a brief background on, who you are and what's going on in your world.
Yeah, well, I'm the Dr. Phil Experience, I guess. I'm real name's Phil Butterworth. I do all the design and CAD CAM machining for MJK Performance, my company, building motorcycle parts. Pretty high end. At least I like to think they're high end. But we're specialized in 5-axis machining. So every design I make has got to be is directed towards 5-axis, so I can take advantage of all the cool stuff. So yeah, that's basically what I do.
So, how did you get into machining? What's your background, and how did MJK start?
Well, let's see. Well, getting into machining is kind of fun. I am the typical high school student that did not try at all. So like C, B student, barely passed, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I used to watch the biker build off series on Discovery all the time. That was like my big weekly thing. And I can't remember which builder it was, but they were machining a wheel. And I saw that and I was in grade 12 and I was like, I got to do that. That looks cool. So I looked up the course on our local tech college and signed up. And for like the first year, I probably about a year, um, while I was waiting to get in or graduate and get in, I actually thought that this was called mechaning, not machining. I was telling everyone I was being a mechanist.
Oh, jeez.
So yeah, I didn't really know what I was doing or what I wanted to do. But yeah, I went to a 4-year apprenticeship program through one of our tech colleges here. I learned all manual stuff. There was hardly any CNC in school in the early 2000s, at least where we were. So I did 4-year apprenticeship, all manual. Did all in the oil and gas industry. That's pretty much all we have out here. A little bit of aerospace if you're lucky, but it's all dirty, greasy, 40-foot long pipes you're putting threads on and all the drill bits and things.
Okay, so the same kind of stuff that the late night podcast guys talk about all
Yeah,
the time.
yeah, yeah. Just
Very
definitely did not enjoy it. I was not a fan of machining for the quite a while actually because it was so just the industry we're in. It's you don't get ahead kind of thing. Where you are here or where we are, you're just hired to run a machine, call yourself machinist, do your school, get your journeyman certificate, but no one's really out there helping you become a programmer or get better. It's just run a machine and you're a number. And I can't do that. That was driving me nuts. So after work, I would bring manuals home and I'd try and teach myself how to write macros and program myself, all hand code. Just because I can't run other people's programs. Drives me nuts. Well, that's kind
yeah.
of how I got started into programming. Is I started making macro programs to do some flats and things that we would cut on pipe, and I guess bosses kind of saw that, so they signed me up for a Mastercam course, and I took that, and then started programming. Uh, Not really complicated, but some pretty easy oil field pieces, 2D, a little bit of 3D stuff, and then how did things start? That there's a big downturn in the oil industry. You guys are, or and the housing industry that pretty much crashed the market for us.
Hmm.
And I was out of a job. had to, don't tell anyone this, but I had to lie on my resume and told everyone I was a mechanical engineer. I actually got a job designing drill bits for an oil company. So that was fun. And then designing them, I also had to learn how to program them because they were also a machine shop. So I had my kind of real introduction into 3+2 and multi-axis machining was I had told someone I knew what I was doing, and then they came to me with a PDC, like a drill bit that's got all kind of 3+2 5-axis stuff on it with lots of cutters all over these fun profiles. I don't know if you ever Google a PDC drill bit, you'll see. And my boss basically gave me a due date with the, I think they gave it to me on Monday and needed it by Wednesday. And I had never done multi-axis stuff before.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
like, okay, I guess I'll. You tell people you're good at something, and they challenge you. So I had to jump into it, but
Jeez.
got it done. A lot of YouTube videos. Learned to make a 5
Yeah,
work real quick.
what a trial by fire for real. That's,
Yeah, I tend to get myself into these kind of situations.
so
Yeah.
how did you transition from making drill bits to starting your own company? Are you, I know Windmill Motorsports had asked, you know, are you a Harley guy or are you just making custom parts? Like how did you get there? I guess.
Yeah, so this is another kind of an interesting thing is my business partner, Dale, he was known as Mad Jap Customs back in the day. And he would hand build motorcycles, you know, weld the frame, bend the pipe, everything he made was handmade, and he was very well known for it. And I followed him on Instagram, and I was always a big fan. And he posted one day on Instagram that he needed this little bracket made for a bike he was building, and I thought, okay, this is my chance. I've got to do this because you know I want to work with this guy. So I go to his shop. We measure some things up. I take it back to the shop I was working at, and late one night, I think I stayed up till probably 1 a.m. working on this simple bracket. Added some fancy pockets to it, and then the next day I brought it back to him. And he took one look at it and said, "Okay, we have to buy a machine together. Like, just we can't let this go."
That's awesome.
Yeah, I kind of laughed it off, thinking I've been promised the world before. Sure, it's cool, but this is probably the last time we'll see each other. But no, a week later, we found a machine on our local Craigslist and bought it, a couple $1,000s. I was like, oh, this is pretty fancy. So I started making a couple like little trinket parts for a bike he was building, and then I ended up losing my job at an oil company because I mean there's up and down that industry. So I came in with without a job, and we just decided, you know, we should make this full time. We should start making bike parts for together for a living. So we,
Wow.
yeah. So I mean, when we first started, we were all like the old Harleys, the shovel heads and pan head stuff. We were building small parts for them. And I was really kind of into the chopper scene back then as well. So we were doing transmission plates and little covers for things. But I mean, I think I made, I don't know, $100 in the first 2 months. So we were like, yeah, this is great, but we need to do something else if we're going to be a surviving business. And that's when we kind of decided to jump in, buy a brand new Harley Road Glide off the showroom floor, and start making parts for that. And that's kind of how it started.
So what was that first machine that you guys bought?
That was some Taiwanese machine. It was a Protus. I'd never seen him or heard of him before, but a little fan control. It was a 2004, I think. Yeah, 3-axis. It was called a Protus. Really funky looking sheet metal on it. There was a hideous purple color too, which was fun.
Phil, so what year did you buy that first machine?
That was only 3 years ago.
Oh, so that's pretty recent then.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
wow, I had no idea you guys were that new.
Oh no, yeah, we're about 3 years old now.
Wow.
I think maybe next month.
Wow. Well, congrats. That's you guys have grown an amazing amount then for 3 years. I just from like the amount of machinery you have and the parts you guys are producing, I had assumed it, incorrectly that you guys have been doing this for a really long time.
Oh no, Dale and I are both the type of people to you dive into something head first and you make it your life. So that's I think that's the only that kind of work ethic was the only thing that got us to move so fast. Is the first year and a half was those 18-hour days, or you'd stay at the shop for 2 days and you wouldn't come home, and you just work and work and work trying to get the name out there, trying to make the fanciest parts you can. Our real big thing, luckily Dale already had a pretty big Instagram following, so we were able to capitalize on that. But we came out when we decided to really push and make this our thing. That's when we got our first 5-axis machine. So we probably had this 3-axis for maybe 3 or 4 months, and then we decided to make this our full-time gig. We said the only way we're going to make a name for ourselves is if we invest in a 5-axis machine and we take advantage of 5-axis machining, so we can do all the fun angles and holes at different angles and all the crazy stuff and make the videos and do our social media game with that. I think that's
so
what helped us.
so speaking of machines, let's do a deep dive on machines. What's your machine lineup currently at MJK?
Currently, we have our bread and butter machine, our HURCO VMX 42 UI. That is our first 5-axis machine, and that thing is a beast. Can't say enough good things about that. Then we have our HURCO TMX 8, which is just a small 2-axis lathe. Gets turned on every once in a while. It's not a production thing. Then we bought the Matsura. That's the MX330 with the 10 pallets. And just recently, as maybe a month ago, we bought another 3-axis HURCO, a VM20i.
Okay, so one question that Windmill Motorsports had was why HURCO? What made you guys choose that for your first 5-axis and continue to choose it?
That was just simply the persistence of a sales guy from Elliott Machinery. That would he would come in every I don't know, like a couple times a month. I think he came 4 or 5 times before we bought the machine, trying to sell us on some Matsuras. We were like, no, we can't afford these high-end machines back then. And he finally came up and showed us this HURCO. And I've never heard of HURCO before. Never seen one, never heard of one. So he gave us kind of the brochure. They were ended up having like an end of year sale, so we got a pretty good price, and there was really no one else around here other than I think we had DMG and Mazak, but their machines were a little out of our price range. So the HURCO just landed right. It was a size we needed or a size we wanted, and at the price we could actually afford. So that's how we jumped into it. And it looked cool. I mean, they're just cool looking machines, if you ask me.
Yeah, they are dual screens and all the bells and whistles for sure.
Yeah, the sheet metal's nice, color's good.
So what made you guys go for the MX330 then? You had such a great experience with your HURCO. Was it the pallet changer? Clive Murphy from Power Break actually asked that.
Yeah, so yeah, that was a big one too. Is we knew we were starting to get a lot more orders. We needed to have more automation. Uh, couldn't really afford to hire a full-time employee at that time, but we wanted to invest that money into another spindle. So getting something with an automation was really the key. And since we had such good experiences with Elliott, their main machine brand is Matsura. So we looked at the Matsuras then, um, thought about maybe an Aroa for our current HURCO, but we really just needed an extra spindle. So we looked at this MX330. We saw there was a more rigid machine, faster spindle, like just a higher end machine. So we thought if we can make really nice parts with this mid-range machine we have now, think of the things we could do with this high-end machine. So we got stars in our eyes thinking about that. So we jumped into it knowing that there's automation. It's a our surface finishes are probably going to be better. So yeah, that's how we jumped into it.
And I know you guys had kind of a rocky start when you first got that, but everything's up and running now.
Yeah, everything's vertical now, and it's going straight.
Oh boy.
It's been a couple few issues to that machine. I'm still not a big FANUC guy, but I mean, it runs lights out. It'll run 24/7. I don't really have to worry about it. I don't have to play with the control anymore. I got an employee that runs the machine now. But yeah, it's been pretty good for us.
That's awesome. So how many hours of unattended run do you get with the 10 pallets?
Depending on the parts we're doing, our longest part is our brake calipers, and they take about 3 hours to machine, or for the first op. So loaded up on the on 10 pallets, that'll run for a solid day and a half before we have to do anything. So that's pretty nice. But most of our stuff will range from 10 minutes to an hour. So our average is probably 4 hours of unattended. So it's not the best, but it helps when we still have. We're only we only had 2 employees, or myself and one other, our newest employee Jason, to run machines. So we had 3 machines to run. So even having 4 hours is still pretty helpful.
Oh yeah, totally. So
But
what? I'll go for it.
I was gonna say, but when we get those, get the brake calipers on there and they run for a few days at a time, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's the dream for
Yeah,
sure.
nothing's nicer than shutting the lights off in the shop and the machine is still running, and then coming in the next day and still a bunch of good parts are being made.
So what's your approach for those guys? I mean, for some of your smaller parts, I imagine you can do more than one part per pallet, or are you guys sticking to one part per pallet? Like how do you plan fixturing versus time on the machine versus all of that?
It gets a little tricky with some of the stuff we do because we really try and take advantage of that how we can hit things from all sides. So quite a number of our parts are kind of only geared to running one at a time, just so we can get all the way around it. We're pushing now. We're coming out with a new product line. That's what we're doing at the moment. So I'm trying to design our parts to be able to, take advantage of 5-axis work, but be able to be made on a tombstone as well. Trying to learn from our previous lessons. So we have a couple of fixtures, but for the most part, most of our stuff's just one at a time.
So are you using vices or are you using dovetail
Yeah.
fixtures? What's your go-to?
Yeah, we have the little 5-axis or 5th-axis vices, and for 90% of our work, it just gets locked in there. We used to do, when we were running production on the HURCO, I would make dovetail fixtures, but since we have the pallets now, I've kind of gotten away from that. So we don't do a lot of dovetail stuff anymore, except for our more complicated pieces like our swing arms and some of our risers and our triple clamps, where they're quite a bit bigger and I don't have a lot of room to hold on to. So I will do small dovetails because they're amazingly powerful.
So speaking of your swing arm, I mean that is, as a motorcyclist myself, like absolute motorcycle porn. How did you guys like? Did you do all of the analysis internally and design? Like, how did that come to fruition?
Yeah. So I mean, of course, the analysis stuff, everything's done through Fusion, from design to the stress tests. We do that all kind of beforehand, design something, throw it through simulation, and then when we're finished, we have a working prototype. My business partner Dale is actually a retired road racer, like MotoGP style bikes. So we'll throw our prototype pieces on one of our Harleys and then take it to a track, and he'll actually run the track with it, which is terrifies me, but he loves it.
Yeah, I've seen him. He's got an RC8R, right, or an
Yeah,
RC8.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He is a fast guy. I think he used to ride for Kawasaki Canada.
Oh wow, that's
He-
awesome. I mean, what a great resource to have on as your business partner.
Oh yeah, he is the bike guru. So that kind of helps because the way we run is I know he knows everything there is to know about bikes, and he knows that I'm really good at machining. So that's the way our business partner works. And we both have our very select areas we're good at.
Yeah, that sounds like it. That's awesome.
But yeah, well, yeah, how the swing arm came to be. That was a bike we were building for Sturgis 2 years ago or last year. I can just, it's like all the time is just blended together for me here. So many long nights.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, that one came from we designed it, put it through the fusion stress tests, and then I had the prototype in 2 days.
Jeez.
This is how we work. Is Dale gets an idea, and he is the epitome of a dreamer. He comes up with a bike idea, and then says, "We need to make this, and it has to be made right now." I don't know why. There's no real time limits, but it's got to be made now. And so I've learned to make things very fast.
2 days is insane though for that.
Yeah, a
That
lot of
is
our pieces
crazy.
a lot of our pieces go from design to prototype either same day or max 2 or 3 days.
So that actually brings me to one of the questions I had put down was how do you guys plan for product R&D time versus production time? I mean, now you've got that other 3-axis mill and you've got 2 5-axis, but I imagine, I mean, it seems like you guys are running all the time just to keep up with demand. How do you fit R&D time into that?
Yes, when before we had the Matsura, our thing was during the week we would run production, and on the weekends we would do R&D. Because we consider R&D the fun time, and weekends are for fun, even though we're at work. So that's how we did it um, before the Matsura, and so we would do it on the weekends, or we would run 10 hours production, then break setup down, and then do some R&D at night. Now that we have the Matsura, almost about 90% of our products are made on there now. So that leaves our HURCO 5-axis free more often. So, it runs production every other week or so. And then I have a week or two to do R&D on that. And
Oh, that's great.
luckily we do have an employee who's he's officially my apprentice now. We've signed him up. That's exciting for him. And then he runs basically the other 3 machines in the shop, and then I focus on doing R&D on the HURCO.
That's awesome. Yeah, was he the one I know you guys had reached out on Instagram not too long ago for somebody. Was he the one that you guys found through that?
Yeah, I think he just kind of showed up at the shop one day with his resume. Pretty much hired him on the spot. He seemed like a pretty smart kid. Yeah,
That's great.
he's been with us for about a year now. See,
That's great. I mean,
Yeah.
what a great place to learn. I mean, you guys do some absolutely amazing stuff. So I'm jealous of him.
I'm blushing.
So how do you guys deal with like what kind of model are you just in time? Like, are you making parts to fill orders, or are you guys just running as much as you can because you can't keep up with demand currently?
That one exactly. We are fairly far behind. We get like our orders just don't stop coming in. We don't have enough time to keep up. So that's why we got our 4th machine. I am trying to get product on our shelves. So I know we're working long nights, not super long, but we're back to 12-hour days trying to get production going, get product on our shelves. But by the time I've done a run of 30 parts, they're gone. That's hard to keep up.
Wow.
One of our distributors is I think we got in with them maybe a year and a half ago. They're called Drag Specialties, and they're the biggest motorsports dealer in the world, like for aftermarket parts. And so with them on board, we've become worldwide. Now we ship to Australia, to Europe. We're shipping things to Japan and Malaysia now. So it's just worldwide orders coming in. It is fairly hard to keep up. We are trying. If anyone else there wants to buy our parts, we are trying.
Yeah, that sounds rough, but a good problem to have, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah. One of those things that once you get ahead of it, then then every smooth sailing from there.
So Phil, are you doing all the order fulfillment, or are you having your employee do it, or how does that work?
Yeah, so right now we have it's my business partner Dale, myself, Dale's wife Michelle, who handles pretty much the front end of the business, taking the orders, and she was doing the website and the shipping and all the emails. And then we have Jason, my apprentice, who's running the machines. And just as a few weeks ago, we had another hire, Aaron, who's full-time logistics and assembly now. So he takes care of all the shipping. He gets the parts back from anodizing, assembles them, cleans them, packages them, and ships them now. But before it was just three and then the four of us trying to do everything. And
Well, yeah, it
doing
sounds like
everything at
with that
the same
demand,
time.
it's a whole job on its own.
Oh yeah, there's an art form to logistics that I have nothing to do with.
So you touched on anodize. I mean, it seems like you guys have your outside processes pretty dialed at this point. Like, do you guys have any tips, or like what kind of process has that been to get to the point where you can trust your anodizers, and what should other people look for?
Oh yeah, I can tell you it is. That was very difficult. So I know a lot of people from conversations I've had on Instagram and with other shops is plating and anodizing has always been a nightmare. Um, we've been to, I'd say, 7 or 8 different anodizers in 3 different provinces in Canada now before we finally found this guy who's up in Edmonton, a couple hours north of us. And he was giving us the quality we wanted. We were still giving some issues, but he was willing to work with us. And we had to go up there. The town's a couple hours away, and we'd have to drive up and kind of go over what we expect, how we can make things better for him to make the quality better. Um, we pay more. That was a big thing. We will tell you that if you're going to do outside work for us, like plating and things, I will pay you more than what you want because I want the quality. Uh, so if you need another few dollars, another 10, 20% to make things nice, do it. I will pay for it. Uh, so that it's been a long process for that. I mean, we we've probably scrapped $40,000 worth of parts for
Wow,
bad anodizing through over the years, over the
that's
last two
rough.
years. Years. Yeah, it's rough when you spend, you're working those 18, 20-hour days, working all night. You haven't seen your family in a couple months because you've worked every single day. They get a big batch of parts out. They go out, they're perfect. They come back from anodizing and they're all scrap.
Ugh.
And you're like, oh my gosh. So I think, you probably almost go bankrupt a couple of times just trying to get anodizing going. When it's out of your control, it's so hard.
Yeah, when it's such a small value process for them, where it's such a large, I mean, like you said, it can scrap tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of product, but for them, it's, you know, a few $100s or a few $1,000 lot charge. Like, so
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's really tough.
That's
So,
why we.
are there things
What's
that you
that?
design for, like rack holes specifically for anodize? Like, what specifically do you? I know you guys do amazing packaging just to get it to them and back. Um,
Yeah, that's a huge thing too. When we first started, everything was hand wrapped in paper towels and taped together, and every individual part was done like that. But now we invested in a laser cutter, and we laser cut specific foam that goes in nice Tupperware boxes, perfectly layered, so every piece has its own perfect spot. It's not going to move or touch anything else. Uh, and that's something we've been working with our anodizer a lot with is we will try and minimize every risk on our end, so everything on his end is easy. So every piece before we send it is hand washed, soap and water, uh, dried off. It's rinsed with Windex right before it goes into our foam bins, and then the bins are shut so that no dirt or dust can get in them. They're strapped down so that when he gets them, it's just part out, throw in the anodized part back in, and ship back. Um, so yeah, we will happily take the extra time and pay more for so that we know that in the end we're getting a better product, so that we can happily tell our customers that you are getting the best.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely sounds like a significant amount more work than most people are willing to put in, but
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, clearly the quality shows in the pictures you guys take and the parts you guys put out. So
Yeah, we make sure, especially with anodizing, that everything's either type 2 or type 3 or hard anodized, and it has to be UV protected. Because nothing worse than buying a, a piece to put on your nice new bike build, and then a couple of months in the Arizona sun, and the black is now purple.
yeah, the tops of my forks, the adjusters were red when I bought the bike, and now they're pink. So
Yeah.
I feel that,
Yeah.
and that was factory, so it's only even more embarrassing for them.
Oh yeah. That's like, we can't let that happen. If we gotta pay for the UV protection, I want these
Yeah,
parts to last a lifetime.
well, that's great to hear because yeah, it's very disheartening because there's nothing you can do about it besides stripping an entire front end to get like the tiny little adjusters out and have them coated or stripped and recoated or something like that.
Oh yeah. Or just get the magic markers out.
I would never do that. So let's jump back a little bit into 5-axis because you guys, I mean, you do some amazing programming. Especially, I think one thing that you guys at least video really well and photograph really well is all the tabbing that you do. So let's go into tabbing. What is it? How do you do it? And how did you learn to do it?
Okay, so tabbing it's kind of our way of making your piece finished in one operation. So especially on 5-axis, you can tackle the piece from all sides, and then in the same operation, you just tilt the axis or whatever, and basically use an end mill, or you can use a slitting saw or something, and just cut the piece off of the rest of your stock, so that you have a perfect piece finished in one operation. So when you're doing something like that, you definitely leave a lot of extra stock, so you have room to cut it off. So it's a bit wasteful, but for making prototypes, it's almost a no-brainer, 'cause you don't have to spend the time working on soft jaws and other second op fixtures that you might only use once, because you might change the design as soon as you've tested this piece out. So it's a great way of finishing a piece, one operation, cut it off, test fit it, need to make adjustments, then you can go into actually producing proper fixtures. But I actually learned how to do that through Angelo, the true Croatian sensation on Instagram from Autodesk.
Okay,
When
yeah.
I first used Fusion, and I was trying to go through some videos on YouTube on how on earth to use this new software. I think one of the first ones I saw was kind of a webcast with Angelo talking about 5-axis work holding and things he's done in the past when he used to own a shop and when he used to work for Tesla. He's become a good friend of mine now, but I saw that, and there was all these examples of cool work holding and tabbing and other things, and I just took pictures of everything he showed, and then I threw them in kind of a work holding folder I keep on my computer. So that's kind of how I first saw it, and then I just tried it out because I needed to make this piece for front end that we were building, and it was maybe 4 in the morning, and I'm still working on this thing. And I thought, okay, I have one piece left for this thing. I am not making more soft jaws. I'm tired. So that's how I kind of tried it out, with just more or less frustration and sheer laziness.
So what's the I mean, obviously the goal is to have the tab left, but I've always worried. I mean, I've never been able to do it because I don't have a 5-axis, but I've always thought about it and worried about the cutter binding up in the slot. Are you using gravity to kind of pull the part slightly away from the cut as you're getting down to that last little bit, or are you doing a lot of shorter depth cuts to get to that final tab, or are you doing a full depth and then getting right to that thickness? Like, what's the meat and potatoes of it, I guess?
Yeah, so I guess my average tab thickness is probably 5 to 10 thou. I find that's kind of 10 thou is probably a good sweet spot where it's still pretty strong, and it's not just gonna fly up into your cutter and bounce around. but I try to tackle it from both sides, so usually half and half, and I use a small cutter. So I think 1/4 inch is the biggest I'll go. I want as little cutter pressure as I can, and I can rough it out with big depth of cuts. That doesn't really matter until you get to like 1/8 of an inch thick or so, and then I'll take my recipe is just 50 thou cuts, back and forth, attack it from both ends. Let's say you have about 10 thou left. I try and take the last pass at my last pass has got to be at least 50 thou thick. So I still want some meat on there as I'm taking the last pass. I don't want to be taking a 5 thou or 5-10 thou finish pass to make a 10 thou tab because it'll just break. So I try and take my last pass at least 50 thou to give me some room.
That makes total sense. And then are you leaving stock on that side of the part as well to finish up, on a red wheel or, in a second op later? Or are these usually just prototypes so you just go straight to finished dimension?
Yeah, for prototypes, I'll go straight to finished dimension. For like I do have production parts that are tabbed. You've probably seen that double tabbed piece I just put on Instagram maybe a week or so ago.
Yeah, that was one I wanted to talk to you about. That was pretty cool.
That again was just out of sheer laziness. Just 2 pieces, they have to meet together, just do both at the same time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but something like that, I'll leave maybe 5 thou on the wall so I can hit them with a nice sander or like a Scotch-Brite wheel or something.
Okay.
Right.
That's really cool. Yeah. I appreciate that. That's something I definitely want to start playing around with more, even if it's just on a indexing fixture or something.
Yeah, I mean, you can easily do it doing, like, if you're window machining on a 3-axis piece and you're just hitting, a piece from both sides, you can leave tabs in your window. I've done that before too.
Yeah, same. I've definitely done that, but it's nowhere near as impressive as, a double stack part that you can snap off.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Yeah.
It's a super cool process, and it's a little bit scary to do, especially the first couple times, because you don't really know how thick to go or how big of a cutter you should do. I think that the thinnest one I've done is about 3 thou, and that was just blowing in the wind by the time it was done. And then I've done some pretty big pieces, maybe 13 inches long, that I've tabbed, and that I actually had just like in my old manual machining tricks, had a bungee cord attached to the piece and then hanging out the window with me holding it as it's tabbing it, so I was pulling the piece away from the cutter. That's always fun.
Very cool.
So do you try to find a flat surface on the part to do the tabs on? I've been looking at your Instagram here, and it seems like you try to find a flat surface that you can easily blend after.
Yeah, I try and, if I'm going to tab something, for the most part, it's got to be easy to finish that side. I don't want to try and do extra blending, so I'll always try and hit something from the flat side. I don't want to surface down into a tab or anything like that. I have done, I guess they call them sprues or something. You see them in the medical world when they're machining dentures or things like that, where they have these little fingers almost coming out of the stock into your piece, and then you can do full 3D machining around those and then just break those off. I've done that in a couple pieces.
Okay.
But yeah, for regular old tabbing, I'll just find a flat edge and cut it. And for that, I will use, for cutting tabs, I do use the tab feature in Contour in Fusion. It's so easy to use.
Oh, so you're not modeling those? So those are just generated?
Yeah. When I was doing it first, I'd model everything, but as I've gotten more comfortable doing this, I'll just use tab, the regular old tab function. It works perfect. I don't have to worry about extra models or anything.
Awesome. So speaking of modeling and all that, I know you got Camplete with the Matsura because I think they're bundled with it. Did you use simulation on your HURCO before you had the Matsura, or do you use it on both now?
No, when we were running the HURCO, I just hold my tongue to the left and hope the planets were aligned. A lot less hair than I used to. But there was a Campleat's not out for HURCO, so they don't have the HURCO models yet
Oh, geez.
fitting. So yeah, so it was all just hoping for the best. But on the Metsura, I'll run everything through Camplete. Just it's so easy.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, nowadays, I mean, I can load up 10 new programs on 10 different palettes, and I can just hit go and walk away. I know that my speeds of feeds have been processes have been dialed in. Camplete tells me it's not going to crash. My tools have been in there for 6 months. I have done the scary Rob Lockwood stuff of throwing a brand new program in the machine, pressing go, and then going home.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I think he does that a lot more than I do. I've done it once, and I didn't really sleep that night.
Oh my
I
But
bet.
gosh.
when I came back, it was fine.
Do you guys have
Really
any monitoring on your machine, like any cameras or anything like that?
No, something I want to invest in is a couple of cameras or something where I can at least see if there's any alarms or anything from my phone or something. But we don't really have any monitors. We got a couple of cameras in the shop just for security, but no, nothing on the machines.
Yeah, I don't think I would have slept well that night at all.
No. Yeah, you're like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. My programming is good. Camplete says it's good. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. Then you get home and you're sweating at 3 a.m.
Yeah. Did I torque that vise correctly? Did I?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh boy. So, you guys started with HURCO. I know King Toucan Fab asked conversational to CAD ratio. Did you guys ever use the conversational on the HURCO, or was it all cam straight from the beginning?
Yeah, I've never used the conversational on our mill on the 5-axis. That's all been cam. I've done a lot of conversation on our lathe, but that was back when Fusion's lathe was pretty rough. I really didn't enjoy using it, so the conversational is amazing on the HURCO. It's just draw your piece kind of thing, and it's done. It's kind of like, I don't know if you ever used the Akuma as the IGF, but I can't remember what it's called. But that stuff's really good.
Yeah.
The conversation on HURCO is really nice, and I was doing that for all of our lathe work for that until the lathe side on Fusion got a lot stronger. So now it's Fusion for everything.
Okay. Yeah, I know the HURCO sales guy at IMTS last year was pushing the conversational real hard, and I was like, "It's okay, buddy. I got cam. Like, I appreciate it."
Yeah, I think the conversation was pretty good for those shops that are still like 10 years out of date.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
telling me like, "Oh, I could do a part faster than you could in cam, blah blah blah." And it's like, well, okay, we'll see.
But I can make edits to my part.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's well, that's interesting. I know there's a lot of people that really like the conversational on HURCOs, and it sounds like, yeah, if you didn't have cam that worked well, like when Fusion did, that would be a really big help for sure.
Yeah, especially, I mean, if we didn't have, like, we're so lucky to have Fusion at being so affordable and so powerful, but if we didn't have that and you were just buying a 5-axis machine, at least you could still do 5-axis work without spending $40,000 on software.
Right.
Or you still do the 3D. You can still do adaptive clearing on the HURCO's conversational, which I think is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's some serious calculation to be able to do in the control itself.
Oh yeah, you don't want to do that by hand.
No. I wouldn't trust myself. That's for sure. So, that Boone Freeman asked, "What machine would you get if you got a new 5-axis?" So that kind of brings us around to that question. If MJK needed another one, what would you guys be looking at?
If money was no object, it'd be Kern, hands down. Those are beautiful looking machines. I would love to play with one. But in a reality, if we needed a new machine today, I'd probably go back to HURCO. They're doing a lot of new work with automation. I believe they bought a robotics company or partnered with one, so they're doing more integrated automation now. So I mean, I'd do either that, either get their kind of robot system or an Aroa system. attached to another HURCO 5-axis.
Okay.
They're just such nice machines.
But the next one you
Okay.
get for sure will have more automation as well.
Yeah, I mean, automation is everything these days. Even if I was not doing our own product line and I had a job shop, I would probably still invest in automation, especially with pallets. Being able to, spend 5-6 hours during the day to program some pieces, throw them on pallets, and then have you run all your jobs at night. Like, you can't compete with that. That's such an amazing thing we have these days.
Definitely. So did you guys ever look at Haas? I know somebody, JC Me Roland, asked opinion on HURCO versus Haas. Was Haas ever in the picture for you guys? Or, I mean...
It kind of wasn't at the beginning, only because our Haas reseller we have here, I've dealt with them a lot over the years, and they were really bad for a long time. I've seen some of their apps, talked to some of their apps guys now, and some of their new sales guys. So our local Haas dealer is a lot better now, and I would consider them again. But at the time when we were buying machines, I just knew that I didn't want to deal with these guys, and we knew we wanted to get 5-axis, and I've run 3+2 Haas stuff before that I didn't like on a big EC 1600, horizontal.
Okay.
Again, older machines, I know Haas these days, in the last 5-10 years or so, has really revamped and gotten really rock solid machines coming now. But we also just had a really good sales rep with Elliot, and they've been fantastic to us. So it's we have a really good relationship with them. So I'm very happy to have them supply us with machines, because they deal with the other companies we like as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a good salesman and good service and all that is pretty paramount in buying a machine.
Oh yeah, it's scary buying a machine, spending your life savings or twice the price of a house on a machine, and if your sales or service guys aren't there, then it's terrifying.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Luckily, our service guys just stop by a couple of times a month just to say hello.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, that's one reason we went with the machine we did recently, is the guys were so good, both sales and service. So I totally understand.
Oh yeah, it's good. We got a pretty good relationship with our applications engineer through Elliot. He plants a tree every time I make a complaint. So that's good. We got a nice Dr. Phil experience forest growing. Nature walks through that when I'm older.
Yeah, there you go. Oh boy.
Another question we have from Boone Freeman is, what is your favorite machine that you've run at like previous jobs, past work experiences?
My favorite still would be our first HURCO, our first 5-axis HURCO. One of the machines I've been probably the most confident I've ever used was an Akuma, an LB 3000. That's a big oil field machine. That was or LB 3500. I can't remember the LB something. But yeah, those were just machines. That whatever you threw at them, they would do. If you took that 1-inch depth of cut by accident, it would do it.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, you'd break the tool, but it would cut it. But yeah, for the funnest machine, it's definitely still our HURCO. I just love that machine. It does everything I need it to do. I could give you the salesman pitch if it holds tense every day, but all day long. But I mean, it's just a fantastic machine. It's just fun to play with, and I mean, 5-axis. You can't say no to that. Sometimes I'll do swarfed chamfers just because I want to see the machine move.
And that's a trunnion style, right?
Yeah. The way they do it is it's built off the same platform as their bigger 3-axis, but they actually take the table off and put in a permanently mounted trunnion.
Oh, cool. So it's like the old Haas TRs, TR or whatever. Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah, you can't actually remove it. It's part of the thing.
I'm sure that's a lot more rigid than if they just threw it on a table or something.
Oh yeah, exactly. You don't have to dial it in every time.
Is that a Cat 40 or BT 40?
Yep. Yeah, everything we have is Big Plus Cat 40.
Okay, great. What kind of tooling do you guys use? I mean, do you have any fancy shrink fit or any of that stuff, or is it mostly collets and?
No, for all of our roughing, like I'll use a 1/2 inch illuminator from GW for all of our roughing. We use GW for everything, but all our roughing and finishing and surfacing tools are all in shrink fit. And then all of our drills and taps and anything special will go in collets. I'll put all our drills and taps are in ER16 collets. And
Okay. Do you guys have your own? I mean, you must have your own shrink fit machine. What'd you end up going with?
we still use a torch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we built a little. We have two. We built a heat gun. We actually made a heat gun for a shrink fit, but it takes so long to do. So we built a little system that just rotates the tool as you put a flame to it, just so you're hitting it from at least all the way around. But I mean, we haven't had any issues with that yet.
That's awesome.
We're not getting these things cherry red with a torch either. Like I think a few people do.
Right. Yeah, they're not turning black afterwards or anything like that.
Yeah, no, just enough to open it up so I can drop a tool in.
Do you guys have any problems pulling out broken tools?
Sometimes if a tool will break in like below the tip of the tool holder, then I mean then that's the fun process. If you heat it up, I gotta push the tool like the end mill a little bit further down, then try and scrape out any burrs, then heat it back up, and then try and get the thing out. But that's happened. Well, I'd say it happens a few times. It's probably happened 4 or 5 times on each holder we have. But I have no problems putting a tool back in and having that run for a few months before having to change it again.
Oh, wow.
We have no real run out issues. I mean, most of our stuff, we're working within the Harley worlds, and the Harley world is, I don't even think the engineers have heard of tolerances over there. I can be used to be making everything to a couple of thou or 5 thou tolerance, and then it would fit on one bike, and then it wouldn't fit on the next bike. So, I mean, our tolerance has to be 30 thou for most of our things, just so that it'll fit on every bike.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
The run out's not even really that big of an issue for us. It could be 10 thou out, and we're still okay.
That's bizarre. I never even thought about having to make things, so loose that they'll actually fit on all the bikes.
Yeah, and it catches us all the time because, like, Dale and I are both perfectionists, so we want to hit those tight Grimsmo tolerances, but if we do, it's not going to work on anything but the bike we built it for. It's a whole other way of thinking.
Wow. Yeah.
And then you have to build things for people who are also assembling these bikes in their garages that might not have the proper tools. So you can't have tight tolerances where you would need something press fit in perfectly. It's got to be loose, so someone that's jamming a metric Allen key because they don't have the right Allen key in there to plug something on. You got to think about that when we're designing things.
Oh, boys. Yeah. I definitely know the feeling. I've worked on enough bikes and dealt with enough motorcycle mechanics or people that think they're motorcycle mechanics that I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, all the pieces have to be beefy enough to be hit by a hammer and also beefy enough to be used as a hammer.
Right, exactly. So, speaking of cool things that you're making, I saw you made a pretty sweet triple tree for AU. Do you have a class you want to plug or?
Yeah. So I'll be teaching a class on Thursday, basically going over how I can take the complicated parts that we do and other projects I've done and how to machine them quickly. So the processes I do to take something like that swing arm or those triple clamps and break them down so you can do same day delivery kind of thing.
So how long did that triple tree take you?
Well, the first one I did, I had it same day. The ones for AU, because I've made 2 of these now. The ones for AU, I spent some time on, so they were probably a day or 2 each. I made 6, I think, in total.
Oh,
now.
wow.
Yeah, so at AU, this is actually this has been a project we've been working with Autodesk for a couple of months now, working with their team as they were releasing the 2.5 axis generative side. So one of the big things was taking our triple clamps, putting them through generative to do the 2-axis or 2.5 axis stuff. So you can make really nice. I still think they look really nice, but they're a lot easier to manufacture and a lot lighter. So this is a project we're working with them. So at AU, you're going to see our regular triple clamps, top and bottom, that I designed, then the 2.5-axis design ones, then the 3-axis design ones that I just finished, and then there's going to be the 3D printed, or the generative meant for 3D printed. It's going to be there as well.
Oh, how cool! That'll be an awesome class. I'm
Yeah,
definitely
yeah. So if you're going to be at AU, there's going to be a. Oh, sorry,
I'm definitely bummed I can't make it this year. A lot of
Oh, that's too bad.
I'll also have to watch the broadcast once you guys record it and post it up.
Oh yeah, definitely. Hopefully we'll bring these. Hopefully Fusion does another one of those Fusion academies, and we can bring them there as well.
Oh, that'll be great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a really fun project working with them. You get to try out all the new steep and shallow tool paths to make all these crazy generative things. It's pretty nice.
Oh yeah, so do you use a lot out of the extensions, like the extended probing and things like that?
Yeah, I do now. I was helping them out, or kind of on the beta team for a while, but then didn't really have a lot of didn't really have a lot of products to make with them. Like everything I have is already run and in production. But everything I'm doing now for the last couple of weeks is all steep and shallow, like heavy steep and shallow. I'm using a lot more of the probing on the Matsura to measure our pieces. So and doing the deep print, so I have a full list of actual measurements on a lot of our parts we're doing now, so I can keep track of it a lot easier.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's a system we're putting in place now. Is a lot more of this, a little more in depth fusion side of things.
So, are you also? I know I took Grimsmo's class at the last AU on doing all the macro stuff through Fusion. Are you doing a lot of that directly out of Fusion as well?
Oh yeah, everything. One of my biggest things is, because I'm really lazy, is I don't want to touch the code out of Fusion. So if I don't have to, I don't want to. So I will do a lot of the macros, a lot of the extra probing variables and things. I will do that with manual NC in Fusion, and I'll make templates so it's a lot easier. I can just drag and drop them into programs. Yeah, I mean, everything that I try, for like 99% of the things we do will be a 100% Fusion, and I just post and run them.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the things are a little more, you got to do some work to your post to dial some things in, but yeah, it's worth it. If I don't have to think about it, or if I can be, on a beach somewhere and I can have my employee post a program and don't have to worry about hand editing anything, and he can just post it and run the program. That's where we want to be.
Definitely. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I believe Dylan, you were actually the first Insta Machinist I ever followed.
Really?
When I first got in, or when I first joined Instagram, I noticed machinists were on there. Yeah, you're actually the first one I followed.
That is pretty cool. Well, I appreciate that. That is
Fun full circle.
Yeah, seriously. Well, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Dylan, are you going to ask the one question?
Oh, yes. Some guy posted on there named Phil. He said, "What's your favorite style of potato?" I don't.
Oh, good. I'm glad you asked. I've been thinking about this all week. A twice bake fiend. It's got everything. It's got the potato skins, the mashed potatoes, the fry style. It's the best potato. I don't care what anyone else says. Twice bake all the way.
And then a final question is, how much and what's included in the experience?
That, I don't think anyone's gotten the full experience yet. It's a private thing.
Well, I think that's probably an excellent note to end the podcast on. We really appreciate you coming on. Anybody who's listening, please go check the Dr. Phil experience out. Go take his class if you're going to be at AU. definitely stick with us. We'll be back next week with Intolerance Podcast at Within Tolerance Podcast on Instagram. And thanks again, Phil, for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's been great.
All right. Thanks again, Phil. And we'll see you next week, everyone.